Welcome to the show, YouTube friends. Hit like and subscribe as we wrap our heads around the Antony to Old Trafford reports. Everything is about money. I think this is sad. The words of Ajax manager Alfred Schroeder amid reports Manchester United are on the cusp of prizing Antony from the Dutch club for a staggering 100 million euros. I'm Heath Pearce filling in for LME, and I'm joined by Jonathan Johnson to discuss the latest Mega Premier League transfer in a summer window. Full Mega Premier League transfers, full of Mega Premier League transfers in a summer window. It's been wild. Plus, we'll be analyzing what we've witnessed so far from the top 5 leagues this weekend. Qué Golazo begins right now. JJ, now before we get into it, it's been a wild summer so far. We're going to get into this weekend's results, but let's start with how you're doing, and also Antony to Manchester United. So first, how you doing, man?
Doing very well, thanks. Welcome back onto the show. It's been a while. I know I've been missing your cheese pizza quips all summer long, so delighted we're finally getting this one-to-one time, man. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. Well, obviously, I'm a little bit rusty because I went through and just kept reading the same line over and over again in my introduction. But I'm doing good now. I'm settling in. You know what I mean? It's like getting that first pass right in the match, where it's like you want to connect that first pass, then you settle into the match, and hopefully this goes a little bit better than my words so far. But let's talk about Antony to Manchester United. David Ornstein and Fabrizio reporting that it's a 100 million euro deal, that the deal is essentially done. I mean, what's your take on this, especially in a year like this where we haven't seen sort of massive transfers happening like we've seen in years past?
Yeah, I mean, my first thoughts, honestly, I'm not sure Antony is worth that kind of money. I don't think that he is necessarily a Manchester United player, but what is a Manchester United player these days, judging by sort of the standards of recent seasons. So if United want to go and blow that sort of money on somebody like Antony, I mean, he's a talent, don't get me wrong, and it doesn't surprise me that with all due respect to Ajax, that some of the bigger clubs in Europe have been looking at him. But at that price, I think it's only really a desperate club, that stumps up that kind of money. And United, despite their form picking up in the last couple of matches, they won this weekend, beating Liverpool as well was sort of an early turning point in Ten Hag's tenure. I still feel that there is a massive sense of desperation around there. They've got the shadow of CR7 looming large. And, for me, I think it doesn't surprise me the way that Antony has handled this, because, a kind of move like this doesn't come around, that often. So it doesn't surprise me to see him pushing for it. But I'm unconvinced that he is really the kind of player that United should be spending 100 million on. And I kind of feel like this is more indicative of, just how poorly, their transfer window was planned out, really. I mean, I don't know how you feel about it. I mean, obviously it sucks for Ajax. They've lost so many star talents, this summer. They're always kind of like in a perennial sense of rebuild, but it does. I can understand why Schroeder is so frustrated, this late in the transfer window, losing another key piece. But also at the same time, I mean, for you, maybe speaking from experience, when you've seen like a teammate, who wants away, I mean, surely it's better to get that kind of poisonous influence out of the squad, because he's made it very clear, he doesn't want to be there in Amsterdam anymore.
Yeah, and obviously he signed a 5-year deal, which I believe runs for another 3 years or so. So the valuation of him exists where Ajax still hold all of the cards, but 100 million, I just don't see. Even in the peak of insane transfers, it was always hard to justify that type of price tag for any player, right? Let alone a player who had a fantastic year last year and obviously very good in the Champions League, shows that he can play at the highest level. But to come in, the conversion on that and the pressure on that to convert that into some sort of 100 million euro result or output just seems nearly impossible. Plus, for a player like that, I'm thinking from the Manchester United side. Now, if it wasn't a Ten Hag who had worked with him, who has this belief in like, this guy is going to be it, it's just going to cost this much money, I would say it feels desperate. But clearly, Ten Hag feels like he needs this player, right? Like, but I mean, where does he go in your opinion into this lineup, and what kind of output do you think is successful? Like if you were to remove the price tag, I mean, what would he have to do to be able to take Manchester United from where they are? Yes, they've grinded out their last 2 results and they've seen a turnaround, and Ten Hag said now the players know what it takes to get results in the Premier League. But what kind of output do you think is going to actually take this team from where they are now to being essentially a top 6 or a top 4 team.
I mean, honestly, I think when you're paying that kind of money, I think it's reasonable to expect from an attacking talent like him, somebody who's able to score and create goals, that he's sort of breaking into double figures in at least one of, the two categories that he can. And, to be honest, I really think that they should be expecting him to, return sort of double figures in both over the course of a season. Perhaps
do you
not
think that's like
first...
Hazard type years, Coutinho type year? I mean, do you think it needs to be at that upper end of like pushing towards top scorer, pushing towards assists, or somewhere in the middle of that? I mean, 100 million is insane.
Yeah, but so much of this now depends on what happens with Ronaldo. We're ticking into the last few days of the transfer window, and despite so many of the rumors, so much noise, it doesn't seem like there is like an obvious destination at this moment in time for the Portuguese superstar. So, I mean, I think a lot of, what Antony's role might be for United will be dictated by how that attack, looks, whether it has Ronaldo in it, whether it doesn't. Because if it doesn't, then, I think that there's a much better opportunity for somebody like an Antony to come in, for Ten Hag to, really form the attack in the way that he wants to with the players that he trusts. And that will probably be more, more productive. But, if Ronaldo stays, I mean, honestly, I cannot see the situation changing that much around United if he's there sort of, sulking sort of in and out of the team. Everybody knows that he wants to go somewhere where he can be playing Champions League football. So I think it's now imperative that, assuming that United do get this deal for Antony over the line, that they also get a deal over the line which sees Cristiano Ronaldo go somewhere else, because that will make Ten Hag his job so much easier in accommodating Antony and actually enable him to to be able to bed in properly, find his feet, and start returning on that massive transfer fee pretty quickly. Because let's not forget, this is a United squad that still has a lot of attacking talent there. You Jadon Sancho obviously scored against Liverpool. You've got Martial, I know, who looked pretty sharp in pre-season. So there are guys with a lot of talent that can be tapped into and better utilized. And I think sort of CR7 moving on is kind of key to that now. I don't know how you feel about whether Cristiano Ronaldo can be potentially compatible with somebody like Antony and the other attacking talents that Ten Hag has at his disposal. But for me, it feels like a bit of a useless exercise if Ronaldo isn't going to be moved on.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it feels like this transfer, this type of money or spending is going to be potentially the tool needed for Ten Hag to move Cristiano on, of saying, hey, we've spent all this on this. The team is moving on. We're in a new era. We need to be able to move on from this, as opposed to, we all know the Ronaldo Man United caters to the way Ronaldo plays, and his output can be fantastic, but it mostly everything has to funnel through him. So call to action for all of you live viewers. Is Antony worth the money? And obviously we had a few points in here, JJ, about, Sinistera being signed for a quarter of the price and his output was better than Antony in the Eredivisie. We also have just the fact that, like, you're only worth what somebody's willing to pay for you. And if somebody's willing to pay for you, it's not your fault as a player, right? He wants to move because you're going from Ajax to Manchester United. It's, in theory, a bigger move for you. So it's not necessarily on him. The market dictates these types of transfers, although I think the market has cooled off quite a bit. We're in like a bordering on a global recession. So this type of money certainly feels like, somebody going for what they want and willing to pay what they have to. But do you think that this has anything to do with maybe forcing the hand of Ronaldo moving out, and the fact that you've now invested heavily into this? You've also got Elanga, another player that could find themselves deeper, that has a lot of potential, that's getting more minutes. I mean, how do you think this actually shapes up in terms of Ten Hag and Manchester United almost forcing this transfer at an astronomical sum?
Yeah, I mean, I do kind of feel like there is sort of kind of like a power play element to it, because it is a sign that, right, United are backing Ten Hag, and they will ultimately probably cede to Ronaldo's desire to go and play Champions League football as well. I mean, obviously, doesn't necessarily sort of paint the club in the healthiest of lights right now, but I ultimately think they'll be in a better place for it if both of those things happen, because I think it's important for them to bet back Ten Hag as he's trying to, not just overhaul United as a team on the pitch, but sort of overhaul the culture surrounding the team, getting them, to think more proactively, basically just creating a more healthy environment around the squad and getting them focused on playing football again. So yeah, I mean, I do think that the size of this transfer is definitely designed to sort of push Ronaldo to the exit door at Old Trafford in many ways. And let's not forget as well, Antony is coming in at a major cost in terms of the transfer fee, but his salary won't be the same level as Cristiano Ronaldo. So assuming that United can get CR7 off the books, there will be some kind of financial balancing act there, that sees, United take less of a hit than they would if, Ronaldo stayed and was eating up a massive salary and Antony was added to this group. So, I definitely think that it is, now going to be a very interesting last few days of the transfer window with regards to what happens to Ronaldo, because it's almost like giving him the green light to go and make a move somewhere else. It's whether, that potential club that could provide the landing spot for him can make the space available.
Yeah, it's space, and it's also finances, as we've continued to see a lot of teams looking to put it on Manchester United, knowing that the leverage is on all the other clubs to say, hey, we'll take him, but you're going to have to eat up some of the salary. You're going to have to take on or bear some of the responsibility of your own actions. So let's move on now to the Wolves Newcastle match. Obviously, JJ, I know that you were watching a different match perhaps, but there were two absolute bangers in this one, and Newcastle almost coming from behind, hitting the bar late in the match. But a really controlled game at home for Wolves that led to, them looking comfortable, but ultimately Newcastle almost finding their way back in this one.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that, both sides, I guess, will be content with a point at the end of the day, considering that on paper, this looked quite a tricky match for both sides. Obviously, Newcastle being the new money aside from Nottingham Forest. And Wolves have kind of come back into a bit of form, after dropping off, for a little while, especially last season. I know that some amongst us were expecting them to maybe even be battling relegation this season. So it was a really interesting match to kind of follow while I was watching the Villa one. I mean, I have seen the goals. I haven't sort of seen the match and been able to pick it apart in too fine a detail, but fantastic from Alain Saint-Maximin. Again, to save the point for Newcastle, and the guy is just a joy to watch. He is box office. There was a lot of talent on display in this match, and I'm happy as well for Gonzalo Guedes, somebody who I saw move to PSG from Benfica a few years ago. Didn't work out for him in Paris. Ended up moving on to Valencia, and as we know, Valencia is kind of a bit one of those kind of weird projects where you don't really know. How the club is going to get back to the heights that they once scaled. So to see him in the Premier League, finding his feet quite quickly, that's encouraging, because I think that could make a huge difference for Wolves. And obviously, there's a lot of speculation that Kaladzic might join from Stuttgart between now and the end of the transfer window. So, I think there's two teams, with the makings of having, some very interesting seasons individually, and I think ultimately the draw was probably the fair result. I don't know if you have any views on that, whether you feel that Jimenez's ruled out goal was just or unjust.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good question in terms of the just or unjust. What I want to quickly touch on, though, with regard to that matchup there, is obviously the club record signing of Alexander Isak. Your take on the addition he could be. Obviously, this is a player that started at Dortmund under all the hype, couldn't find his feet there, then goes to Real Sociedad, does quite well there. Still, I think he's 22 years old. What's your take on his ability to now provide something different for this team? Because if you looked at Saint-Maximin, obviously on the dribble is kind of a runaway train at times, but is able to score his first goal since the beginning of the year. I think it was January was his last goal or something like that. Now you have somebody who's a proven goal scorer that brings a different dynamic, but also that speed that you want in the attack. I mean, what's your take on this signing in terms of how he's going to be able to contribute?
Yeah, I mean, Isak, I think is definitely a sort of an investment for the future. I mean, I rate him. I think that he has a lot of as yet untapped potential, and obviously we've seen flashes of brilliance from him as well, not only at club level but also at international level as well. He did look very bright for Sweden in Euro 2020. I feel like it's a lot, especially given that sort of statistically, when you're looking at the season that he had with Sociedad, it wasn't particularly that impressive. But then again, he is somebody who has, a fair amount of experience for somebody so young. He's been around, he's experienced a couple of different big club environments.
Yeah. And his numbers weren't huge last year, by the way. Year before, he had a fantastic season, 17 goals, 2 assists in La Liga, but last year only 6 goals, 2 assists, if I'm reading this correctly.
Yeah, I mean, I think as well, Newcastle's view on making this deal is that they're investing in someone who has shown that he has, long-term potential. He's not like a flash in the pan, somebody who just had one good season and they're buying him off the back of that. So I guess it's almost more encouraging in that way that they're not just basing this purchase on what they saw from him last season. He's somebody that they feel is fitting their vision for the future, how they're going to put that team together. So yeah, I'm curious to see sort of how it plays out once they have all of their strikers fit and available to Eddie Howe. And I think that Newcastle are forming a very, very good competitive squad, with some fantastic players who, at some point in the near future are going to be knocking on the door of Europe. I don't know if it will be immediately this season, but obviously I think that they will not be flirting at the wrong end of the table as they were last campaign. But for me, I think that, this moment for Newcastle now is about putting the building blocks in place for them to be really competitive next season and definitely getting themselves into Europe. I'm not saying that it won't happen this season, because obviously they have players of the necessary caliber to get themselves into continental competition, but it's a long season. Let's see how it plays out. But I don't know if you feel that Newcastle are almost kind of there in terms of having the squad to compete for, at least maybe Europa League qualification already.
Yeah, I feel like maybe they're off the pace of that. But as you said, building for the future, I think, is an important sign, one for the fans. And it's not just about the results today, but it's about, hey, we're building this thing up. This is going to be a multi-year build until we can get Newcastle back to what we feel was the glory days in terms of the product they put on the field and their ability to compete for a European spot, and then hopefully in Europe at that point. Let's talk quickly on Villa West Ham. Obviously, your Aston Villa gave the Hammers their first goal of the season 4 games into the year, and end up dropping all 3 points against West Ham, who get that W. What was your overall takeaway in this game from the Villa side, as well as what you saw from West Ham?
Well, yeah, obviously Villa are going to be the team that give, a winless side their first points of the season. So I wasn't surprised in that respect. To me, ultimately, it's very disappointing. I won't bore you with too many of the details right now, but it just feels like something is definitely, not right at Villa. I don't think that's all necessarily down to Steven Gerrard. I feel like it's more like a club directional kind of thing. And I think Villa definitely are in a difficult situation now. They've got a tough run of games coming up. I don't see the results picking up. And there's sort of player discontent, within the squad. It doesn't bode well for Gerrard. So I'm interested to see sort of how Villa react, especially given that, you probably wouldn't expect many, if any, points in the coming games. So, I think that gets the monkey off the back for West Ham, and they'll probably start to pick up points and form now. For Villa, it feels pretty bleak at this moment in time.
Wow, yeah. And we're going to get to some other Premier League results and just the importance of early season points here in a little bit. But let's talk about Celtic joining Liverpool on Cloud 9. You see what our producer Des did there in terms of
working. He's a Bryan Adams fan.
Yeah, working with numbers in such a creative way. But, Dundee United get thrashed. Greatest margin of victory on the road for that Celtic were able to come with. Obviously, Liverpool as well, just beating up. I think that ties the record for largest goal margin, but also I think the first half goals, it was like 6-0 or something like that. For Celtic specifically, the theme is always, but they don't do well in Europe, right? Do you think that there's maybe something different about this team, or is this a one-off isolated result? I mean, could it be a better year for them? They obviously open up against Real Madrid, who are only fall victim to Shakhtar Donetsk when it comes to opening matches in the Champions League.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. I mean, having sampled Celtic Park on a European night, it is a really special atmosphere. And I think now, they certainly seem to have a team that kind of is worthy, of that kind of backing when they go into Europe. I'm really impressed with what Postecoglou's managed to achieve with this team so far, how he's managed to turn the club around, especially at the time when Rangers looked so far ahead. And now that gap it's not quite as obvious, despite Rangers getting to the Europa League final last season. Kyogo, I'm a big fan of his. I think it's only a matter of time before some bigger European clubs come knocking and try and prize him away. And I think as well, bringing in that kind of new talent, Celtic, moved away from kind of going to your journeyman British, players who have, perhaps fallen out of favor in the Premier League, not quite good enough for that, or, wanted to try something that was maybe a little more glamorous than sort of mid-table in the Championship. They've gone for new talent, and suddenly there's, a vibrancy to this Celtic side, certainly more so than the last couple of Celtic teams we saw in Europe before, things really started to suffer from a major downturn. So do I think that they can pull off a shock in this group? I'm not necessarily sure, but I think that they could fight for third place and to drop into the Europa League, which is probably more realistic for the likes of Celtic and Rangers to be targeting at the moment, as Rangers showed last season. But no, I feel like this team, has some real sort of not necessarily hidden gems, because obviously we're talking about them, but sort of, players who I think a lot of people are going to discover during the Champions League group stage once it kicks off in a week or so's time. I don't know how you kind of feel about this new generation of Celtic talent, but for me, it seems like the most exciting Celtic side that has probably, emerged in at least 10 years.
Well, yeah, I think the Rangers-Celtic rivalry, in terms of battling for first place, if you look at those teams, it's first or failure, right? When it comes to winning the Scottish League. And now that competition is back, it seems like both clubs have had to go a little bit deeper to say, what's our actual philosophy? Like you said, we can't just have the fallout of Premier League players or big names or mid-table players that want to come over and be part of this project. We need to actually start building a little bit more of a competitive team and kind of change the way that they play. So I certainly think that's brought out the best in terms of going with different signings, which is a risk, but seems to be paying off so far. Now, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we've got 3 talking points from Saturday. We've got a little bit of Arsenal talk, and we've got our final thoughts with you, JJ, as you head out to the Parc des Princes. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Starfleet, get to Starfleet. Prepare for Warp 10 excitement.
Yeah! This is an unauthorized launch. It is the greatest adventure of your lives.
These broken rocks are reading our nightmares, but I don't like my nightmares.
Behold!
So magical.
Whatever happens,
We're in this together.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Qué Golazo Pod. And just a reminder, Paramount Plus is the only place to stream every minute of every Serie A match, and you can quickly and easily sign up for your very own account right now with a free 1-month trial by going to ParamountPlus.com/Italy. Just click the try it free button. You just click that and use the promo code Italy for instant access to the best Italian club soccer available across all of your devices. Visit ParamountPlus.com/Italy and start streaming today. Now, JJ, back into it a little bit. We're going to have 3 talking points from Saturday. And obviously, I want to get your take if you have some talking points outside of the realms of this. But this is the parameters that we've set so far. Roma getting that point in Turin. Obviously, we continue to see the Italian or Serie A be a wide open league. I don't believe there's anybody that's perfect on the campaign. I believe everybody's given up points so far, 3 matches into the season. But Roma snatching a point in Turin, how important is that for their quest? But also in just sort of the leveling of the start of the season for Serie A. JJ, I'm not sure if you can hear me, but it sounds like you're muted on your end. I don't know if there we go.
Yeah, sorry. It's no, I mean, I'm not entirely surprised by this result, because I predicted before the season started that I thought Roma would probably close the gap on some of the stronger teams in the league and make a better fist of trying to get into the Champions League spots, tip them for Coppa Italia success as well. So we'll see how that one plays out. But I think Jose Mourinho's pragmatism is really coming to the fore. I mean, admittedly, against a Juve side that, are not at their best so far this season, I still think that they'll pick up faster than they did last campaign, Juve. But, I think, missing, new key players like Angel Di Maria doesn't help. I know Rabiot picked up an injury as well, despite the fact that Allegri tried to move him on. So, Roma, I think, as long as they can avoid defeats in those kind of games, that's what's going to allow them to stay in touch and potentially, remain competitive for Champions League qualification, which I think has to be the aim now if Mourinho is to push on this Roma project. But I'm going to flip it around for you. I mean, do you think that Juve are in danger, this season, because we've seen Allegri try to make some moves, freshen up this squad a bit. He's been unable to so far. Paredes hasn't arrived from PSG. They tried to move on Rabiot. He's still stuck with him there. And it kind of feels like they're going to be relying on Vlahovic's brilliance, kind of like Fiorentina were before he moved there. And obviously Juve have, quality injured players like Chiesa to come back, but it's almost like, this Juve side feel like they're going to be sort of hamstrung for at least quarter of the season before they have like their full repertoire of talent available to Allegri.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And obviously the Pogba injury and just the rotation of the squad. And maybe it's just me looking into it too much, but it feels like Juventus have sort of settled into being a team that competes for a Scudetto. Not that the team, if you look at the rosters past, they were way out in front of everybody, right? In terms of the quality they had in every position, the depth in every position. And it felt like Serie A automatic, Champions League is the goal type of thing that you see in terms of the roster that they had built. But now, while they've got depth, while they've got quality, like you said, it seems like Vlahovic is going to be the one that has to carry them if they want to even win the league, let alone, what their chances are, in other competitions. So I agree with you. Or at least I feel that this is a team that is going to struggle to keep pace all year long, because there is multiple teams now that have lifted their levels, and then they're a team that I just don't see where everything is going to come from in terms of getting results consistently across an entire season.
No, absolutely. And I think that, Allegri is, I can see things getting a bit tough in the next couple of weeks. Don't think it's the easiest Champions League group that they've been drawn into, obviously with PSG, but also with Benfica, Maccabi Haifa. None of those games are going to be easy on the road. Home form is going to be absolutely key. And Allegri, he wasn't even hiding when he was asked about it in one of his press conferences the other day. He's saying that, their qualification is going to play out against Benfica. It's not going to play out against PSG. And I think that illustrates exactly what you were saying just then. Like, Juve have settled into this sort of being one of the chasing pack now, as opposed to being the team that sort of sets the pace domestically. And I think that might be sort of a longer term worry for Juve.
Yeah, and obviously for on the Roma front, adding Andrea Belotti to the team certainly adds more firepower to them and their ambition of being more competitive, or trying to compete for a spot at the top of the table in Serie A. So it'll be interesting to see where he actually fits into the lineup, with Tammy Abraham continuing to score goals for the club. Do you have any thoughts on this signing and where he could fit into the overall landscape?
Yeah, I was curious to see where he would end up, because obviously we've known that he was leaving Torino for a while. There was some speculation that he might go to Major League Soccer, especially with Toronto's push for almost like an Italification of the squad. But then there was some rumors about Monaco, and then ultimately, it emerges that Roma was the best destination for him. Mourinho, is convinced that he can get a tune out of him consistently. And, it feels like a good fit, and perhaps having that established sort of, I guess, guaranteed 10 to 15 goal striker, that could really help to boost this Roma side, because, it hasn't been the most prolific of starts to the season for Tammy Abraham, as great a talent as he is. And I think, this kind of move, especially given that it's on a free transfer, takes a bit of the weight of expectation off of the likes of Abraham, and perhaps frees them up. And then also, it's going to allow, Dybala a little bit more freedom and a bit less pressure as well to start delivering.
Well, as a reminder for anybody that's listening to this in audio form, we are recording this at 11 a.m. Eastern time on a Sunday. So there are still matches to be played, including the Spurs Forest match. We've got Barcelona and Real Madrid still to be played. And then in the Italian league, Atalanta and Napoli still looking to kick off their matches. So if you don't hear about it, it's because of the time in which we are recording this podcast. Now, JJ, let's talk about the Haaland hat trick. Unbelievable turnaround. From an American standpoint, all I was watching is Chris Richards getting put in the 56th minute, being up 2-1, and then all of a sudden it all crumbling and saying this is definitely going to fall on us. But in terms of his output, right, and the fact that you're now playing with a traditional or true number 9, whatever he is. He's a machine, but like a different type of striker within Manchester City. Now finding their way back into it from 2-0 down to coming back and through a Haaland hat trick. Unbelievable performance from him, and starting to see that form continue to increase. Do you think that we're seeing just the beginnings of what Manchester City could be with him up top?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it was inevitable at some point that there would be this kind of introduction to Premier League life for Erling Haaland. It didn't really surprise me that it came about sort of in the way that it did. Palace sort of falling foul to something similar to that happened, to Villa at the end of last season when City, sewed up the title. A team goes to Manchester, takes a surprise 2-goal lead, and then it all kind of falls away, because at the end of the day, City, they're almost like the best team in the game. When they get into that kind of situation, 2-0 is such a dangerous lead for teams like your Villas, like your Palaces, when you're against a team like City, because when they turn it on, they can just suddenly blow you away. And I think now you've added Haaland to that mix, and it's crazy. I mean, the only thing that I guess I do wonder is sort of how Haaland, places City sort of in terms of like the bigger picture of the season. Is he the player that sort of gets them that little bit further? We saw them fall just short in the Champions League last season. Is Haaland the guy that sort of bridges that gap that they've needed to fill, in order to get the Champions League success that they crave? And, it certainly seems like it's going to be the beginning of a fruitful relationship for him, City and Guardiola. But, is Pep going to perhaps tinker, I don't know, maybe try and turn Haaland into some marauding defensive box-to-box midfielder because he's got those cyborg-like qualities? No, I'm joking about that. But I do think that Haaland really does have the potential to really make City, this complete machine that we've kind of thought they were for the last couple of seasons, and then being proved wrong sort of at the business end of like the Champions League in particular. I don't know how you feel about Haaland sort of completing that vision for this Guardiola City side.
Yeah, I mean, it's an unbelievable addition. And you talk about over a season, like you said, like last year against Villa, just similar to this year against Crystal Palace, just the way the team can wake up and become unstoppable. Yeah, in a knockout competition, sometimes it just comes down to one or two matches that could be the difference. And now Haaland being another difference maker. We know they have players that can score and they can win even in bad performances, but now he gives them a little more verticality, which I think is a threat that allows probably more players to have a little bit more space, or him to be the difference of like you said, just that next step that could take them to the next level, or be, just dynamic in a way that they haven't in ways past, where on a bad day, teams can actually find ways to take points away from them. Now, just as a quick correction for me, as I talked about in Serie A, Napoli are only 2 games in and are still perfect after 2 games. I was looking at the top sort of 10 teams in the table and saw that, there was nobody perfect on those points, but there were still teams with matches left to be played. And Harry Kane goal alert, by the way, for anybody that's watching this live. Harry Kane continues his tear. Now, Bayern. Let's talk about Bayern Munich, who are showing that they're mortal. Again, I go into the theme every year of like, oh, Bayern aren't as good as they were the year before, and then they just batter a few teams early on, or they just look in control. But this one's a little bit unique. They draw Mönchengladbach 1-1 in Bayern. Huge result for Gladbach. But if you look at the actual statistics, I think it was 20-something shots in the game. Jan Sommer made it was 20 shots on frame. Jan Sommer set a record of saves in the match, which was at 19, which is absolutely insane. Showing that, again, Bayern, who controlled everything. I listened to a lot of the sort of post-game press conferences and stuff, and they were sort of laughing at the idea of like, no, we're going to continue to play the way that we played. We completely dominated this game. Yes, we could have been more clinical, but like at 20 shots on frame, Jan Sommer being forced to make 19 of those, the 25th shot of the game being the first goal or the only goal for Bayern from Leroy Sané. I mean, what is your overall take in terms of not necessarily this match, but where Bayern are at this point in the season?
I mean, I think Bayern are in a good position. Their summer transfer window, I think, has been very, very good. I think they're in a much healthier spot now than they were last season, when there were legitimate questions about them and sort of where they might be headed. I think that Bayern have started the season in very good form with a lot of momentum. And I don't really think that the Gladbach result changes anything. If anything, we know that Jan Sommer is a quality goalkeeper on his day, and sometimes you just have one of these like blinding performances where a goalkeeper keeps a team out sort of almost single-handedly. I've seen Mimo Ochoa do it a couple of times over the years while he was playing in France with Ajax. You know, sometimes a goalie is just inspired, manages to get a hand to pretty much everything, and it takes something special to beat them. I don't think it makes, you know, Bayern's performance, you know, any less impressive. You know, to create that many opportunities on goal certainly shows that they are heading the right way this season. You know, and there are going to be some teams that come up against them and really, really struggle. I mean, I think they've got a fantastic Champions League draw. I'm really keen to see how they duke it out with Barca. And, you know, I think as well, you know, this Gladbach side, they had a lot of quality. They were disappointing last season, but they set the bar so high the year before that with that Champions League run that they enjoyed. And I think it took a while for them to sort of digest that, to move on from that. You know, and now some of those players are coming back into a bit of form. They always had the potential to be a quality outfit, you know, so it doesn't surprise me to see them running, you know, a team like Bayern fairly close, despite the fact that they did have to majorly rely on Sommer, you know, in form like that. So I don't know how you feel about it, but I wouldn't be too worried about it from a Bayern point of view. You know, I think some days you're going to, you know, stick 7 goals past a team like they did Bochum the week before. Sometimes it's just not going to go in. I don't think this should be setting any alarm bells ringing in Bavaria.
Yeah, I agree. And when I listened to the press conference, they were laughing at this idea of like this constant comparison of like, has the team evolved their style of play with Mane there instead of Lewandowski? And they're like, Lewandowski wasn't just a target forward for us. He did so many other things that people just want to put him in this box and compare it to a new false nine type of narrative, but they weren't buying any of this sort of the us poking and prodding from the media side of like, how is this team different? They're like, we should have won this game. We're in cruise control. We're playing great football right now. You know, I would stay on the Bayern Munich conversation, but fortunately, because I've stepped in to replace LME for this episode, our producer Des has honored me with an ability to talk about Arsenal here towards the end of the show. So I got to ask you, you know, as an outsider but an insider of the game, are Arsenal the real deal? You know, do they have the potential or the quality to keep this up? I mean, they squeaked this one out late in the match, but on one hand, you could criticize it as saying, yeah, but the quality of the game wasn't there. But on the other hand, you say this is a team just like any team, similar to a Manchester City, who late in games can find ways to grind out results. And it's not always going to be perfect, but if you can find ways to win, it's actually a sign of growth and the ability to stay in matches, even if you're not on your day.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it is, you know, always a sign of great quality if you can win when not necessarily being at your best. But the thing that I've been so impressed with by Arsenal so far this season is there's just so much more coherency to the squad. I think they've made some very, very smart additions. I mean, some of them are no-brainers. I mean, like giving Saliba a chance finally in defense, you know, that has changed things massively, you know, for Arsenal at the back. And I think that, you know, the team now looks primed, you know, to really perform the way that Arteta has been preaching for the last couple of seasons. And, you know, they're finally, you know, ready to, you know, to sort of live up to the expectations that are being set down for them. So, yeah, I mean, I do think that they are going to be one of the top sides to watch and, you know, perhaps to beat this season in the Premier League. I don't think that, I'm not necessarily saying here and now they're going to be challenging for the title, but, you know, I do think they now have the quality certainly to be, you know, sort of properly established there in the top 4. Yes, it's early days, but, you know, I think that the evolution in this Arsenal side has been quite clear to chart over some time. And, you know, I think it's finally, you know, starting to bear fruit now. And I think it must be a really exciting time to be an Arsenal fan, you know. And also, you know, I think with the result against Fulham look better than they have been in recent years when they've sort of been yo-yoing between the Premier League and the Championship. So, you know, I don't think there's any shame necessarily in it only being a 1-goal winning margin.
Yeah, and on that Fulham note, and we'll leave the Arsenal talk in the rear view for now. How, you know, just in your take, you look at a Fulham, they defended for so long, you know, in these matches, and never seems like a recipe for success when you have to defend long periods. Obviously, the style of play and the team that they have, the speed that they have to be able to sit deeper for long periods of the game. But so how important is it for a lot of these teams? You know, you talked about Villa, you talked about West Ham, but when you look at towards the bottom of the table where you have your Leicester Cities, You've got big name teams sitting at the bottom. How important is it for these teams, whether recently promoted or not, to get those early points to sort of try to, knowing that some of these bigger names towards the bottom of the table are eventually going to find their form and clear themselves at the bottom of the table?
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of why I was so irritated about Villa losing to West Ham earlier, because if you watched, West Ham were clearly sort of still trying to find their feet. I mean, we know that they have a lot of quality in their squad. It was just a matter of time before they found form. But, when you're a team like Villa and you're supposedly aspiring to sort of like European qualification, you have to take your opportunities against a team, almost kind of kick them when they're down, so to speak. And I think when teams cannot be that ruthless or don't have that streak in them, then you're going to get punished in the Premier League, because at the end of the day, that quality will ultimately tell whether or not a team is putting the performance in or not. So I think West Ham now sort of, I'm not going to say fluking the win, because Villa weren't brilliant. I do feel it was a wasted opportunity, but that is the kind of game that illustrates why you have to take the opportunity while teams are out of form, while they're still finding their feet, because it is going to be a very difficult and unforgiving Premier League season, I feel. And I'd feel more confident for a team like a Fulham, who have been able to go toe to toe with Arsenal overnight for the most part of 90 minutes, than for Villa, who were unable to take that opportunity to beat a weakened West Ham side. So yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of teams who will be looking at some of these bigger sides sort of down the table, just thinking it's inevitable. It's a question of time, when they start to pick up form and get back on song. So no, taking it back to Arsenal, I do think that Arsenal are going to be one of the pace setters this season, and I don't think it's something that's just going to fizzle out after the first couple of months of the season. I don't know how you feel about it, but you must feel pretty satisfied right now with the way that the team is performing.
Yeah, and it's ultimately, like you said, baby steps, right? Like being a Champions League contender year in and year out in the Premier League is an actual thing, right? To be competitive in that spot. And I think Arsenal have been very short of that, but getting closer and closer. That next step becomes a top four challenger. There's obviously becoming 6-7 teams now that are challenging for a top four. So that is the next step. And then you can talk about what a title looks like right now, but there's some much better teams still in the Premier League you got to get past. Now, quick word on Real Betis. Similar to Arsenal, overperforming probably expectations at the start of the season. Perfect after 3 games in La Liga. Do you think they're the real deal in terms of their ability to sit towards the top, knowing that you're going through an evolution with Barcelona on one end, and then you've got your Real Madrid, who seem to always figure it out, but an aging roster?
Yeah, I mean, I said last season, I think that Betis are close to being the real deal. I mean, we saw them pushing for glory on multiple fronts. They had a good run in Europe. They obviously went all the way in the Copa del Rey, and they fell just short of Champions League qualification in La Liga. I think the stars are aligning for Betis to have a crack at the top 4. I think they do have the quality. And when you've got a player like Borja Iglesias, who's on form, scoring as consistently as he is at the moment, that's always going to stand you in good stead. And I think if Betis can sort of, sort out one or two, or iron out one or two issues within their squad between now and the end of the transfer window, I definitely think that they are well set. My only fear for them is sort of like 1 or 2 injuries to key guys. Canales is quite a fragile player, but fantastic on his day when he's fit. Nabil Fekir as well. Like an injury to 1 or 2 of those guys can be quite difficult for Betis to overcome, especially if it's sort of a medium to long term injury. So squad depth could be their undoing at some point, but as long as everyone is fit and healthy, I certainly think that Betis, definitely have a shot at Champions League qualification, and I don't know, maybe even having a crack at European glory as well, because they weren't actually that far off it last season. I just feel that they ultimately fell short because they were spread too thinly across multiple competitions. But fingers crossed, they can keep this form up, because obviously as a Betico at heart, I'm delighted to see them doing so well.
Amazing. Well, depth is certainly going to be an issue, especially in a year like this, convoluted with cups and World Cups and all those types of things. So let's move on to our final thoughts. JJ, where are you headed this evening, and do you have any final thoughts of any matches around the globe that perhaps we didn't touch on?
Yeah, so I'm heading to Parc des Princes for PSG Monaco. I'm sure I'll recap it with the guys next week at some point when I'm next on the pod. But no, I mean, it's obviously, one of the more prestigious games in Ligue 1, so one I'm certainly looking forward to. But no, I mean, it's just funny how there are so many of these high-scoring matches cropping up at the moment. You know, we saw Bayern thrashing Bochum. You've got Liverpool, you've got Celtic this weekend. And then you've had Montpellier winning 7-0 away at Brest in Ligue 1 today. It kind of feels like, I don't know, maybe there's something in the water over here in Europe. There just seems to be a lot more sort of high-scoring games.
It's a little more like a tennis match, you know, where you can't win every point. Sometimes you just got to let, you know, give up a game, recover, just shut it down. You know, it's a long year. People are just like, let's take the loss. You know, we'll move on.
Yeah, I mean, it's surprising to see so many of them clustered together. It's almost like every time there's a game week where we're kind of talking about one team, you know, kind of having their ass absolutely handed to them by somebody else.
It's wild.
Today
it's wild.
It was Brest.
and you know, I've been in probably the biggest two thrashings. One against Kaiserslautern, and I got sent off. So the team actually got thrashed after I got sent off. It was real tight then until I got the sending off. But that feeling you get, and then also in a national team jersey, getting a real beating in a Gold Cup final by Mexico, those hurt. When you lose by that much, it's pride, it's embarrassment, it's all of those things. You rarely ever see this. I mean, we just saw LAFC, the top team in the league, start with Gareth Bale and Carlos Vela up top, take a real beating as well from Austin FC, not by a massive scoreline, but you know, really seeing some of these things happen that you don't expect. It's almost, I don't know if it's a style of play thing or teams sticking to their guns or whatever, but it certainly seems like it's pouring goals right now across the globe, and certainly something to talk about every single week.
Yeah, and I don't think Scott Parker got that memo, judging by his comments after Bournemouth getting taken apart by Liverpool. So, yeah, I mean, some managers, I think it would be ringing the alarm bells for. I mean, I know that some people feel like, yeah, he perhaps should have been more concerned with the way that his team performed. But, you know, maybe it's just indicative of the gulf in quality between some of these sides, especially like a Liverpool, who we were just, you know, waiting for them to wake up, really.
Yeah, I agree. Well, listen, we are going to wrap up this podcast. And as a reminder, tomorrow on In Soccer with Trust, we'll be recapping the weekend from a U.S. men's national team roster perspective. So make sure you tune in to that one. And that's it. And thank you so much, by the way, for listening to Qué Golazo. Please take a minute. You know, it means a lot. Leave a rating and a review on your favorite podcast platform. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, anywhere you listen to your podcast. We're also available as videos. So subscribe to us on YouTube. And make sure you visit YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe. Make sure you have those notifications on so you can make sure you get every single one of these videos either in live or not live forms. Thank you so much, Jonathan Johnson. All the best getting to Parc des Princes. All the best for PSG against Monaco. Thank you so much to our producer, Des Norris. And until next time, peace out from us.